Back here quickly on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Just bringing you guys a quick update on free agency and all the things that I have seen. Some more surprising than others. Just jumping straight into it. The Falcons, surprisingly, right, are active in free agency, as well as the Titans. They could both be potentially in on the Titans, or the Jets, excuse me, offensive tackle Mekhi Becton. According to Tony Pauline, he said that the Tennessee Titans obviously need an offensive tackle. Some would say they need two new players at that position. The need at offensive tackle in Atlanta is not great yet. What makes this such an intriguing signing, in his words, is that the Falcons O-line coach, Dwayne Ledford, was Mekhi Becton's position coach when he was at Louisville. So the connections are there with the Falcons more so than the Titans. And Mekhi Becton hasn't had the greatest success in New York. He's always been, it seems, injured because he is a big dude, much bigger than a lot of offensive tackles, it seems. And he's had a lot of nagging issues, muscle injuries, and stuff like that. But I didn't know that about Mekhi Becton and the connection to the Falcons, so that would be interesting if that happened. I think the Falcons would definitely benefit more because they do seem like they're pushing the pedal hard to be good, be one of the more prominent teams in the NFL. And if they could shore up that offensive line that was already pretty solid, very good, just based on the running game that they had, I think it would be very good for this team to just strengthen an already strong part of their team and really make it solidified and arguably one of their strongest points on the team. Moving on to some other potential signings, the Lions are expected to meet with Amon-Ra St. Brown's representatives at the NFL Combine to discuss extending him. And that might not seem important, but thinking about it more, I think if they're able to get Amon-Ra St. Brown's deal done before he hits free agency next offseason, I think it'd be a lot more beneficial for the Lions because of all the rumors and chatter that Justin Jefferson he's going to get a new deal, but that he wants to reset the wide receiver market. And, instead of waiting for the Vikings to, pay a crazy amount for Justin Jefferson and who knows, pay him like 33 or 34 million per year, and then Amon-Ra still waiting for his deal. What if he wants to reset the wide receiver market? What if he wants to get paid that amount of money and the Lions can't afford him at that point? So I think if they get this deal done sooner rather than later, it'll benefit them, save some more money in their back pocket. If he wants to reset the wide receiver market, maybe it's only 31 or 32 max. And then the Vikings and Justin Jefferson will in turn have to pay more because I'm sure he's all set on trying to be the highest paid receiver. Not that he's not earned it, but I think the Lions could greatly benefit this way in the long term if they were to extend them sooner rather than later. I'm sure both parties want to get it done, so it shouldn't be a problem, but the negotiations always take time with things like this. That brings me to the other potential extension talks with the Chiefs and their issue going on with Chris Jones. Diana Rossini reported that this issue around Chris Jones and the Chiefs, people are starting to become more optimistic that they'll be able to sign Chris Jones to an extension. Other teams are still monitoring the situation pretty closely, but it doesn't seem like anything will go wrong. In case something does go wrong, those teams will start to chime in a little bit more to Chris Jones, but it really only seems to be Chris Jones and the Chiefs in constant communication, trying to get a long-term deal done. Why would Chris Jones want to leave? But in the same hand, he has to get paid because of what he's done for that team. So they're still trying to balance that out, but it does seem very likely that he'll remain there, especially if L'Jarius Sneed is second on that totem pole of urgent signings for the Chiefs. I think Chris Jones will get it done, and they'll be willing to live without L'Jarius Sneed, like Tony Pauline reported before that I translated to you guys. The Chiefs are almost preparing for time away after L'Jarius Sneed in case they were to lose him this year. So that only pushes Chris Jones to stay even further. And, I think that'll be good. That's the most likely thing to happen. In other news, in free agency, the Seattle Seahawks, I talked about them before, about Mike Macdonald's comments on Geno Smith and Drew Lock and really not committing to them 100%, unquestionably backing them. He mostly said, he's in a state of unsure. He doesn't really know what kind of situation this could be in a few months. He said that both one or neither could be on the team. He's just really starting to get to know them. But now it was reported just a few days ago by Jordan Schultz that QB Geno Smith has actually been told by Seattle's front office that he will be on the team guaranteed in 2024 under his current contract. And you might be thinking, all right, that could have been expected, but what I found pretty intriguing was that, it came from the front office. Office members maybe higher than the head coach, and it just makes me think a little bit, question the report to come out pretty soon after Mike Macdonald's comments. I'm not saying this is true at all, but it just makes me think that, Geno Smith might have heard that, might not have liked it, and, he went to the front office, the owner, the general manager, and, he could have gone up to them and asked them, where do I stand? Why is the new head coach saying this? I thought we were in a good spot getting to know each other. I thought he would commit to me. He could have brought all those questions to the front office and looking for answers, urging them to give him an answer, and they told him that, he's going to stay 100%. And that's an interesting dynamic there because, it's coming from the front office, two different viewpoints on the situation around their quarterbacks. Potentially that could become something else. Nothing is facts about this. It's just an inkling that I have that the way that it was phrased by Jordan Schultz, that this decision came from the front office. They made the decision. They told Geno Smith that, not to worry. This upcoming season, you're going to be on this team. No questions asked. And how that relationship could or could not affect the relationship Geno Smith has with Mike Macdonald, that'll be to be determined. But that's where that was. Geno Smith doesn't have to worry. The Seahawks will certainly have one quarterback on their roster leading them into next year. Does that stop them from looking elsewhere? Probably not. If Geno Smith is into his 30s and already restructured his contract, how much more does he have after back-to-back 9-8 seasons? How much better do you see him getting as he gets older? All those questions I'm sure will be brought up potentially at the end of this year or during the season if things start to get pretty bad. But we'll see where that ends up. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about here, I actually got this news when I was leaving the studio yesterday. The Vikings released starting running back Alexander Mattison. He's becoming a free agent like he was last year, but last year he signed a 2-year deal with the Vikings, and now they're releasing him with a year left on his contract. And that's just more icing on the cake, on this whole cake of the running back free agency market, the value that the running backs get. If you want to say the lack of respect, you could say that. Not to say that the Vikings are completely wronging this. Alexander Mattison wasn't a top 5 to 10 quarterback, really. He got injured a couple weeks. He struggled with fumbles at times. He didn't put up the gaudy numbers that could make a good case for him to be really mad at why the Vikings released him. And because of the Vikings situation, trying to extend Justin Jefferson, he is the main priority other than Kirk Cousins. They need this money to come in from elsewhere to make sure Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins are on the team 100%. That's what's been harped all throughout the offseason by Kevin O'Connell and just the whole Vikings organization, that they really would love Kirk Cousins back. And of course, no one's going to doubt them when they say they need Justin Jefferson on that team for the long run. He's going to want a lot of money, and somebody was most likely going to have to go. Unfortunately, it's Alexander Mattison. now adding to that list of running backs in the free agent market. And, where do the Vikings go from here in terms of running back? They have another running back on the team. I just can't remember his name. That did very solid. He did all right when Alexander Mattison was injured, to just carry the torch and move the organization along, not have that position be a hole in the offense. But now, they're trying to push for something, compete in the NFC North. I would assume they want a top-tier running back on their team. They would love to have one. But it is going to be difficult now if they're of the mindset of saving that money for Kirk and Justin Jefferson. One, they're going to have to get those deals done quick to then sign someone, potentially draft someone. They could. It's a pretty even playing field class of running backs in free agency. So I think they are not in free agency, in the draft. So they could go that route and just see what they have in the draft, really evaluate these running backs. Because I don't think a lot of teams will be drafting them high. So the Vikings will have an opportunity to draft one of the better ones, potentially earlier than a lot of teams, because I just don't see too many teams dying for starting running backs. And with the amount of running backs that are in free agency, the Vikings might not be able to pay them. So that just makes it even more open for them to take essentially their pick of the running back class, because Saquon's going to get signed somewhere. Derrick Henry's going to get signed somewhere. Austin Eckler is most likely going to be somewhere. Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. All these running backs, they're going to end up somewhere. So that's just going to fill more of the holes for the limited amount of teams already that needed a running back. So the Vikings could have their open pick of picking anybody in the draft that they'd like. But that's still in the early process of it. I was pretty surprised at this. But after dissecting it a little bit more, it does make sense. And Alexander Mattison will be looking for a new home, looking to contribute to another team in 2024, in the 2024-2025 season. So we'll see where that ends up and where that will take us. But where we're going now in terms of this show is Caleb Williams, the presumed number one pick in the draft, has finally come out to talk to the media, give his thoughts on some things that has been said about him, and just give his thoughts on the upcoming draft, mostly what he thinks of the Bears, and just letting everyone in on his personality a little bit. Definitely me. I'll give my thoughts on what he said and how I project him now going forward in the offseason. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back after this short break. You've been watching the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network.